If you were ever asked, let me start with an advice for you. If you were ever asked um, by somebody, upon the person saying to you, hey, I have four different information for you or four different news for you. One is good, one is bad, one is ugly, and the other one is the fun. Tell the person to give you the good. Because the first thing that happens when somebody tells you that, hey, I have news for you, part of it is good, part of it is ugly, part of it is bad, and part of it is fun, your temperature rises. And so I will urge you tell the person to give you the good news. Because what the good news does is it relaxes your mental tension. It decompresses your pressure level and then elevates your state of mind to the extent that you are able to receive the good, and the good will stabilize you and prepare you for the bad and the ugly. And then tell the person to give you the fun at the end of it, and then you will leave that situation, balanced and able to process the information. You will not uh, be out of a good friend of mine if you follow my advice and receive the information in that order or faction. And so, folks, let's start with the good news. The just ended election said good things about the government, about the CPP, about NEC, the Liberian voters. And so let's start with the fun, the good, sorry. And then after that, we will go to the bad, and then we'll get to the ugly and the fun. So let's get started. Folks, this election that just ended, starting with the CDC government, the good thing that I can tell you is that the elections, first of all, were funded. Funded to the point that they were conducted. Had the government, the CDC government, not be able to fund these elections, the election would not have been held. I know for a fact that the German government, the UN, through the UNDP, provided funding for the conduct of the elections. And the Liberian government also contributed. So one of the good things that happened in this just ended elections, was the fact that the elections got funded by the Liberian government, the government of Germany, and UNDP. That was a good thing, because with our money we could not have had the election. So we'll run through this thing quickly. The other thing that happened in these elections was the fact that the election was peaceful. Now, when we say peaceful, we are not suggesting that nothing happened at all. There were some things that happened along the way. There was report about somebody caught with voting cards in the amount of 100. I don't know the exact amount, but my memory tells me, I think I remember hearing about 100 voter registration cards, or if not 100, a huge quantity. There was a report that a country devil in one of the counties ran away with one of the election ballot boxes. I don't know whether there is any truth in that. I'm saying to you, despite some reports of some instances, the election was peaceful. Many Liberians have had fear leading to these elections because the opposition CPP said that, look, we are calling for the resignation of the entire commissioners of the National Election Commission. So people have smelled, trouble. The opposition also expressed fear that the election was going to be rigged. And had the election been rigged, the CPP probably would not have accepted the results, and that would have led us into chaos. I'm saying this to say that we did not have issues up to this magnitude that I just described. And as a result, the elections were peaceful. More so because the Liberian people, the voters, went to the polls and conducted themselves in an orderly and peaceful manner. And so we say kudos to the Liberian people. So yeah, we had a very, very peaceful election. Another good thing that happened on the side of the government is that the National Election Commission, we have to give them credit. With the help of our development partner folks from the UNDP and other partners, work with them. We know the election preparation did not start on time. They were far behind when it comes to time. But despite of the time constraint, everything went smoothly. And so they deserve from credit. Now, we want to emphasize that that behavior that they exhibited could have caused us a serious problem, but that did not happen. So that was a good thing that with the limited time they have, because they started late, because there were funding constraints along the road. So they almost like were kind of pressed with time, but they managed with the limited time they have, because they didn't start preparation on time, they managed to put it off. So yes, they deserve some credit, because it is very essential in every area of work, even in school. If you have limited time, maybe to submit an assignment, and you manage to work with the limited time you have and to submit your paper or to complete your work, then you deserve some credit. But there's a race involved. But that did not happen. Thank God for that. So we gave the National Election Commission credit on the side of the government. Another good thing that happened was that the National Election Commission, as we heard was reported, was able to give the tally sheets of the elections at the time the voting ended. They tallied the results, and a copy was given to each of the first two candidates that pulled the highest number of votes at a particular polling place. That's what they did. So they gave it to those candidates and also mounted it on the wall, thereby breaking about transparency. So the candidates who did well, the first two candidates that did well, they have copy of the outcome of that particular polling place, and that went across all of the polling places in the country. And many of you know there are more than uh, I think about thousands and thousands of polling places. I don't remember the exact number around the country. And so they did that. And so the candidates too were able to carry those tally sheets and tally them, and they were able to get a sense of how they were trending as the votes were being counted. That was a good thing that happened. Another thing that happened on the side of the government, even though there was some hesitance from the get-go, something that is normal for anybody who went into because they went to the elections with high expectation. The government considered. The government actually wanted Monserrato County at all costs. Those of you who follow the elections from campaign time, from the time Kennedy declared their intention, it was like a do or die battle in Monserrato County. The CDC said that it was going to reclaim Monserrato County, and under no circumstance that it could have, afford losing Monserrato County, and that they were going to do everything. Even some of the party leaders, and we'll get to the fun of it, made some promises, and we'll find out whether they were able to keep those promises. But above it all, the CDC, the the CDC was able to find her candidates and then put forth their candidates. In fact, the CDC government was the first to select all the 15 candidates that they needed in all the 15 counties. I think that was good, because when you do that, it gave you time. But again, the CDC considered, Thomas Farah considered to a race that the CDC wanted so bad. They considered, and today, we can say that the election was peaceful. That was a good thing that happened. Let's see what was the good thing that happened on the side of the CPP. On the side of the CPP, some way, somehow, despite the rankling, the infighting, and, in the CPP held together. We are reminded of the situation in Nima County where Tai Womwe, who had interest in becoming the party candidate, could not become the party candidate, but Ilegonlo Ware became the party candidate. Tai Womwe had to quit that political party and run as an independent. Despite all that, the CPP held together. And there was other areas too. We have some issues in District Number 9 where Phoebe Herrings became a candidate. We didn't hear about any primary, something that could bring some commotion. I know some people felt dissatisfied, but the CPP had a enrichment. Maybe the enrichment that they decided worked, but we saw that James Salisa Diba, who we know to be a member of the opposition bloc, ran in that particular election when in fact Fubu Henry having to be the candidate of the CPP, whichever way that was decided. I didn't follow the specific, but I know Fubu Henry became a candidate. I'm told also that there was another CPP person that ran in that district. So, but yet the CPP was able to hold together and went into the election as a unit, except for in some other districts where there was some, divided mind for which they have almost like two candidates. And it's not only unique to the CDC or the CPP. The CDC also has similar thing. Phil Tapadesen wanted to run. He couldn't get the party nomination, and so he went independent. Jemima Wolo Colley went independent, and many other some people that you may know also went independent. And so that's what happened. But despite all of these things, the election went smoothly. Uh, so we can say that. But then the other good thing that happened for the CPP is that the CPP won a lot of seats. If you compare the CPP number of seats they won to the CDC, the CPP won more seats in the Senate than the CDC. So that was a good thing that happened for the CPP. Another good thing that happened is that the CPP earlier had threatened to boycott the elections. The CPP did not boycott the elections, and I think that was a good thing on their part for not boycotting the election. Another good thing that happened on the side of the CPP, or what the CPP did, the CPP as an opposition political party, having expressed fear that the elections were going to be rigged by the governing CDC, pour money and time into protecting their votes. And how did they do it? They were able to collect their tally sheets, and they were able to be ahead of even night in counting. They played their game well by trying to count their numbers and even releasing numbers from their war room. And pretty much, if you watch the numbers that they released throughout, their numbers were more like in line with the results, the provisional result at the National Election Commission, roll out the result. So it was kind of difficult. I mean, just in case if the CDC had any intention of doing anything like rigging the election, something that the CPP had feared, for which they were able to say a lot of things along the way, the CPP was able to more like hold the government accountable on us. I'm telling them, look, we know what happened. We have our tally sheets. The tally sheet was given to you, the government, through the National Election Commission. So there's in no way what NEC has given to us will be different from what NEC itself will be able to receive. So we know what we're doing here. That was a good thing. I think if we all do it like that, if we go with our election like that in the country, elections will pretty much be, fair, especially when the party in power decides not to do anything to the contrary. Now let's come to another good thing that happened. The good thing that happened, some good thing happened on the other hand too with the media. The media was able to cover the election. Now, not to my satisfaction. When I say not to my satisfaction, the media focused on certain candidates, but by far, given the constraints that we have in the country, the media was able to cover the elections. They covered the candidates, even the candidate themselves. We are in a new media world now. I can say Thomas Fowler was going live. Darius Dillon was going live. Candidates in the counties, we didn't see much, but my understanding is that many of them were on their county radios They were propagating. They have their campaign teams all over the place. We saw a serious campaign in Monserrado because it was televised or people went live for the most part. We saw that also in Grand Bassa County. And so I would think that similar thing went on. I know some campaigns like in Grand Cru, there are some campaign team that, not that I know them personally, but I have knowledge of these people campaigning. And so across the country, people campaign, and I'm sure many of them went to radio stations and the election got covered. That was a good thing. So Liberians knew what was going on during these just and the elections. Now let's come to the bad things that happen. The bad things that happen on the side of the CDC, on the side of the opposition, and also on the side of their supporters. A lot of bad things happen. Let's talk about those bad things quickly. On the side of the CPP, what I consider bad was the issue of claiming victory prematurely. It is a bad thing and it's dangerous. And this is debatable. There are people that feel that look, it's not a bad thing because after all, the numbers that they are calling, those numbers were given to them by the National Election Commission. But you can release those results. You can announce those results from your war room without claiming victory. You can say, hey, these are the numbers from our war room. In as much as you have not had a total tally yet, or you are not up to 100% or 90% to be able to project based on the trend, I think it was premature on the part of most of them to have just claimed victory at the very age. There were some people who, just by seeing 4 to 5 sheets and their candidate being ahead, would declare victory on Facebook. We have won. Using the word is over or oving. That is the new word for over now. So that was happening. But in my judgment, uh, it was a bad thing. You don't want to do that. You don't want to give the impression that you have won when you are yet to win. Let me give a specific example why it's not good. I saw people congratulating Fubu Herrings. Many people congratulated Fubu Herrings. Why the elections were still going on, they were congratulating Fubu Herrings. Now, latest results that I got that I listened to says that the CDC candidate, Foko Jr., won the election. So if you look at that, you would not agree with me that it is not a good thing to say. I mean, it's not a good thing to do by prematurely announcing a winner when the very counts that you have is not even up to 2, 3, 5, 6, 20, I'm talking about 80%. I think just about the time the elections counting started, I mean, the vote counting started, I think the following day, people started congratulating Fubi Henrys as the winner. They raised the young man expectation, but now, according to the preliminary results or official result coming from the National Election Commission, he did not win. So people who have congratulated him have given him false hope. He could have had or entertained the idea that, look, people congratulated me. People said that I won. So where is the National Election Commission coming out to say, oh, I'm not the winner? And that is why I'm saying it's a bad thing to do. You can say the person is leading or is leaning this person, or with the trends of things, if the trend continue, Fubi Henry might be able to win. Don't raise the person expectation. Don't conclude the election while the vote counting process continues. And people did these things just about the time some of these counts were around 20%, 30%. They were announcing winner prematurely. And I think that was a bad thing because that could become a recipe for chaos and confusions, and you don't want to do that in this election. That was a bad thing. Another thing that happened on the side of the CPP that I consider as a bad thing was they were issuing threats. Why were you issuing threats? People were issuing threats all over the place that if they rig the election, this will happen. This kind of way of politicking where everybody trying to play strong man, issuing threats that you're going to do this, you're going to do that. You don't have the ability to just go and harm people. Even if you have the ability, why would you want to threaten others with violence. When you could just follow the process, when you could be able to communicate responsibly about the issues that are unfolding, other than issuing threats. Look, we've seen violence in our country, and we should be able to be responsible enough as we communicate, because the things that we say, the words that we put out there, we cannot retrieve them. Once you release the words, you cannot retrieve them, you cannot bring them back. Those words have already been uttered. And there are some people out there who might be deranged enough to follow those things that you said and start acting on them, and that will plunge us into another chaos. Our history tells us that elections in the past were never free and fair. And so, because people did not get, voters did not get their way, voter choices were not respected, that contributed to the civil war we had. And we all know what the civil war took from us as a country and people. And so, we should be very mindful of treading those very paths that led us to our dark days. So, that is why I'm saying the issuing of threats by folks on the opposition side was not responsible at all, and it was a bad thing on their side. Another bad thing that happened was a low voter education. The voter education was poor. I can argue it was even not done. As a result of that, if you go to the election result and look carefully, there were so many invalid votes. The invalid votes were so huge. And one of the reasons, according to experts, that can contribute to invalid votes is when the voters are not educated on how to vote, when they are not educated on the procedures, what they need to do, how they can, mark their ballots in a responsible way so that their candidate of choice, or can receive that vote that they cast for that candidate. Once people engage in those kind of behavior, and it will not be good for them. So voter education can cause people to do things that they will not normally do if they have the education as to how to vote properly. The voter education was not done, it was poor, it was not proper, and I tell you, that was a bad thing. Let's see what else happened. On the side of the government, what are the bad things that happen? Officials of government, people on the side of the government, the folks in the CDC, they were posting also doing similar things that people in the opposition were doing. What I saw was that the people on the side of the government, including some government officials, were just coming up with numbers and putting it on Facebook and saying that their candidate in the lead, their candidate winning. You have to be sure. You can say, look, we are leading. But some of the data that we saw, because at some point during, on the second day, I saw a spreadsheet on Facebook, and this major talk show platform was talking about it, that suggesting that the CDC, especially in Monserrado County, was leading, and the total number of vote at that time was 15,000, and the CDC candidate was at 54, according to that platform, and that Darius Dillon was at around 44. And so when I look at that, I said, but wait now, Monserrado County has almost 800,000 registered voters. And on the basis of 15,000, you are projecting a winner, and you think that you are doing right here. But the person, that platform went on to suggest that it was a foregone conclusion and that the CDC was in the lead. Look, folks, we can do better as a people and not engage in those kind of behavior. I think that was bad. People could have waited for the National Election Commission to release provisional results, look at the trends, look at the percentages, and then be able to say, look, we are leading here, or this side is leading, or if you have gotten the entire tallies of your candidates in your hand, and then you could be able to act and be able to say, no, based on our tally, this is what we have. And, but that was not the case, and I think they were being very that was complete deceit, releasing results that actually did not come from either their own talents or the National Election Commission, and just coming off with numbers and saying that your candidate is winning the election and actually was going to win, that was not a good thing at all. That's why we saw. Another thing we saw was the results were delayed. That was a bad thing. The National Election Commission delayed with the results. The elections that were held, just senatorial election, and I think two representative by elections, according to the National Election Commission record. The election ended 24 hours later. There was no result, no provisional result from the National Election Commission. But on the flip side, some candidates, this is not to give plus to the CPP, but the DeLong team was able to come up with numbers from the very tally sheets and at least release those numbers and emphasize that based on their tally, the tally sheets that were given to them, the tally sheet that were placed on the board at the very polling places, and they were giving the sources or the cited their source of the information that they had tallied and had put up. In about 24 hours, they were able to put some numbers together. The National Election Commission, with that huge number of staff across the country, when in fact the National Election Commission had already tallied the votes on the tally sheet, in 24 hours time could not come up with provisional results. And everybody will agree with me that the National Election Commission delayed to a greater extent. I mean, to the extent that in the very Monserrado County, where they don't have to travel far, they could not release provisional result in 24 hours. They could not do that. They could not even release provisional result from places like Kema, where you don't have to struggle. Bomi, Mangibi, Grand Bassa, they could not come out with provisional result in 24 hours. When in my judgment, the hardest part of the job was already done by counting at the polling places and tallying the result. All he needed to do now is to do the addition of the total count for each candidate at each polling place and be able to come up with provisional result. The National Election Commission delay. Somebody may argue maybe they were trying to be very careful, but again, I think that delay was a bad thing. It was very much unacceptable. That should not have been the case. They should have come, with the results sooner than the date. But be it, they were able to come up with a result. Another thing that happened was the Koji's press conference. Major Jefferson Koji had the press conference, where he was just all over the place, playing the usual strong man, and playing the usual strong man thing that most politicians and political actors do nowadays. You have to talk as though you are on the battlefront, and yelling all over the place, saying this and that, and people were expecting that you were going to concede, because by the time of the press conference, it was clear that the CDC was not doing too well, because NEC at the time had released about provisional result 2 separate times. So the CDC knew where things were heading. And so for him to have come with that kind of, press conference and all over the place, throwing words around and talking as though someone has done anything wrong to him, and, they were down. They didn't do a good job in governing. They were being defeated in the election. I mean, specifically for Monserrado County, they did everything. You understand? And one of the bad things the government did that I want to tell you is that the government spent millions of dollars on just a single candidate compared to rest of the candidates that they had. The CDC spent millions of dollars. While the Liberian people were having hard time in their daily lives, the CDC took millions of dollars for just one candidate, Thomas Fowler, and gave him that money. And Thomas Fowler was dividing money around in Monserrado County trying to buy votes. Another bad thing they did was the fact that they were buying endorsements here and there. The CDC was just buying endorsement. They were like the Wheelbarrow Boy Association. They were just going about everywhere, asking every group of people to put themselves together. The endorsement that Thomas father received, that the CDC paid for, and this is fact, the endorsement that Thomas Fallas received, that the CDC paid for, we have never seen anything like that before in the history of Liberia. They pay for all the endorsements that Thomas Fallas received. They were trying to do this to convince the Liberian people that they were on top of their game. No, they were not on top of their game. I mean, you have governance issues in the country. People are challenged economically in every capacity. People are having hard times. And now you there, when there is shortage of money in the country, people are lining, at the ATM machine in queue, trying to get money. They can't even get their own money. And then you are there campaigning as though, I mean, during the time of the campaign, it was like the government forgot about its responsibility of governance and took the responsibility of campaigning more so for a Thomas Fowler in Monserrado County. The government behaved as though, I mean, a win for Thomas Fowler who are miraculously changed everything that going wrong in the country. That's why the CDC did, spending money here and there, buying endorsement all over the place. You saw that the CDC used funds to get even people from the COP and brought them to themselves. They paid money to bribe those boys to come and join the CDC. Now CDC was able to get what they call CDC COP. I mean, that even did not help them. The CDC even attempted to buy people from many Noel Zau Gilson, who were able to release the information that Samuel Twe was on a mission. He abandoned his responsibility as a finance minister. His responsibility became the campaign financier in chief, using state funds and buying people to come and endorse the CDC candidate. And they did this only for one candidate in Monserrado County. That was Thomas Fowler. The people saw that. That was a terrible thing for them to do. Spending money on one candidate. Samuel Twe was campaigning. President We Are campaigning. All of them campaigned for Thomas Fowler. And the Liberian people rejected them. That was a bad thing, and I hope they learned their lesson, and thank God that the Liberian people showed them that lesson, taught them that very good lesson. I hope they will not do that again. Let's look at another bad thing that happened. Their supporters congratulating their candidates, unfounded accusation all over the place, people playing blind loyalty all over the place. And then let's come to the fun part. The CDC buying endorsements, I talk about that. And then using funds from the government, the promises that they make. Mamba Molu talking that if DeLong should win the election, he will resign. Has he resigned? He has not resigned. And also, we had Mike Jabate saying that if Thomas Fowler wins, he will commit suicide. He's yet to commit that suicide. What is stopping him from committing suicide? Mamba Mono is about time for him to resign, because he said he was going to resign had Darius DeLong won the election. DeLong has since won the election. It's clear. A candidate in conceded graciously too, and thank God, what's his name? Mamba K. Mono was at that event. I thought he would have used that opportunity to concede, but he did not concede. And what we noticed, another fun part of it was, after it became clear to the government that the CPP was doing well and winning most of the races, especially the Monserrado County that they wanted, where they spent millions of Liberian people money for a single candidate who election would do absolutely nothing for the country, because we saw that with Sir Joseph. Sir Joseph won, nothing changed. What we saw was if there was any change, the change went up in the wrong direction. Prices went up. People now can access their own funds. So the CDC have had wins, and those wins did not change anything in the country. So for them to have felt, some way, somehow, that a Thomas Father win, who have taken care of their governance responsibility was just laughable. And that's what these people did. Spending the country money for a single candidate, lying about his credentials, his achievement. They lie about everything. That a man had a university when the university is not even operating as we speak. So they told all the lies, telling us that Thomas Fala was going to win and that he was the best candidate. But the Liberian people, the good thing they did, they rejected the CDC candidate because the CDC was very insensitive. Very insensitive to the people. They abandoned their governance responsibility to the people. And they jumped on the bandwagon of campaigning for a single guy who has been in the legislature for more than 15 years. And his record cannot even deliver his own district. I'm not sure the people in his district are living the best life, for which the CDC tried to tell us that he was the magic wand to the governance problem in our country. That was unfortunate on their side to do. And that's why the Liberian people punished them. Still with me, folks. In my closing, I will give you a recommendation, and I have a political poem for you, and I'm sure you will like it. Another thing very bad that I saw was the insults. The insults from the CPP folks insulting the government folks. We got to get away from this and demeaning others. But let me talk about the other fun part, which is the silence. We saw a huge silence. I don't remember the last time we heard from Akara Gray, the guy with the bank. I don't remember the last time we heard from Eugene Lamin Fagon, the man with the facts and fiction. These people are silent. It's like they are going into political coma. And there are many supporters of the government that are now conceding. They are facing reality. Their polls have changed. They kind of move in the middle a little bit. This extremism is not going to take us anywhere. The country is not in good shape. People are hurting. And yeah, you there trying to tell us that everything is well in the country. And you're doing it all because that is your political side. And you don't care about the reality on the ground. If you are supporting a side, tell the side that, look, things are not well, so that they can do well, because they were elected to do well. But because that is your side, you look at something very bad, a terrible situation in the country, and try to project something otherwise, completely far from reality. And you claiming that you love your country. And your understanding of love for your country is to support the person that who are you from the same party. And this is the way you think you can support your country, that you can show your patriotism within a party. So I will support that person even though things are not going well. I will justify. This is sad, and we can continue on this note. Another thing we saw, which is part of the fun, is the blame game. People started blaming each other. As we speak, folks on the government side, they are blaming Nathaniel Mange. They are blaming Samuel Twell. They think Samuel Twell is the one responsible for the loss that they experienced in Monserrado County. The reason the CDC did not win in Monserrado County, that reason is obvious. Because they did a terrible job at governing the country since they took over. The promises that they made to the Liberian people, they could not fulfill the promises. The government has become so insensitive to the people. I don't have to tell you about the debts in the country. No accountability in the country. And you think the Liberian people who cannot access their own money in the banks and you are in charge of the state, will come and bless you with further political power to do what? To do more? To increase their suffering? Was that your expectation? That the Liberian people were so foolish enough that they will increase their own suffering? These people walk the lines at the ATM. They know how long they stay online. These people spend money for transportation on a daily basis. They know how much it was costing then. They know how much it's costing now. They know the situation has gotten worse. And you are there spending money on one candidate, dividing money around, buying endorsement, right in their faces, not doing anything serious about their conditions. But you are putting all your effort in electing one person. And you feel by doing that will bring them around to love you. The last time they voted for you was 3 years ago. At the time they voted for you, their condition was a little bit okay, but at the time they felt that their condition was bad, they wanted it to be better. And that's why they voted for you. They voted for you. 3 years later, their condition has gotten worse. And you think their condition getting worse is a justification for them to vote you. No, 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 no. That's why the CDC got punished at the ballot box. And that was the right thing the Liberian people did. Now, there were a lot of secrets that got exposed. That's the fun part. Also, you know, I've been telling you that the CPP, the government spent a lot of money. The government spent a lot of money. Part of the money the government spent was sent to even uh, government supporters in the diaspora. And that secret has been exposed. The finance minister I was talking about, it's been reported from within their own ranks and file that Samuel 12 sent 18,000 United States dollars to pro-government platforms that propagate government messages, that defend everything about government, that platform that will tell us that all is well in the midst of the harsh economic realities our people are facing. Platforms that tell us that all is well. They see the loan lines, they see the transportation very high, they see the prices of basic commodities, they see the debts in the country, they see the economic hardship. And yet, these people here in the United States that live in the best of life have access to electricity 24/7, have access to transportation. They don't struggle to get around. I'm sure they should want these things for their fellow citizens in Liberia. They see that those things are not being delivered. Their fellow citizens don't have access to those things in Liberia. And yet they will boldly and shamelessly get on their platforms and say all is well in Liberia and say that the opposition is the problem. The opposition, the last time I checked, they just making noise, just as any opposition will do. It's the same thing in the US. Oppositions will always criticize. The opposition is not taking you in charge of running the government. You are in charge of the government. You run the finance ministry. You run all the agencies of government. There are reports of corruption you're not prosecuting. There are reports of there you're not prosecuting. That's not opposition. But these platforms will receive $18,000 of our country money, and our brothers and sisters in their just mind, that money is justified for them to eat. Now the fun part is that instead of them dividing the money among themselves equally, There are few of them who took the money and ate it and screwed the others off. Can you imagine that? Isn't that a reflection of the government? If those in the diaspora will receive money for propagating falsehood and defending what is completely opposite to the reality on the ground, here they have jobs, they are working, they will receive $18,000 to share with their colleagues who are in this business of justifying and defending the wrong and painting a picture other than the reality on the ground that is subjecting our people to poverty. Will not divide the money equally, will screw their friends up. How much more about those on the ground who are in charge of the national coffers? I have that video. Let me play it for you. And listen carefully to these people got exposed. Watch, folks.
But I want to go to our international line and talk to my sister, Orita Miller. She will have something to say. Ori, morning.
Hey, Israel, how you coming on in the studio?
We're okay, Mama. Good to have you on the show.
I hope you are getting it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the show. Israel, thanks you God very much. Let's just pray for our president and take our time to talk to him. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
You are getting me?
Yeah, we got you loud. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Now, only the people in the government that are helpless, I know working around the president are helpless. Even the government sent us money. We are talking for the government in the diaspora here. The government got together and gave Samuel 12 money to send to every one of us that talk for the government in the diaspora. Certain people like Mr. Gabon, he was the head, Samuel 12 called him and told him to call every one of us that talk for the government. He gets something for us. Mr. Gabon had a guts to only call Class D.
Okay. Confirmation.
In the government now, Prince Sherry, Rose Lee from Switzerland, and he Mr. Gabon. They were only
It said about the 18,000 because I was told it was 18,000 US dollars.
Yes.
I was trying to call you, but you know you can be so busy, so I couldn't call you. So we talk. But I was called.
Yes. So it's not only the people in the government doing bad to president. We are even the president. We are decided to.
So, folks, there you have it. There you have it. So somebody from India missed, got the information about this behavior exhibited by these talk show hosts who the government of Liberia, through Finance Minister Samuel Twelve, sent $18,000, who have the courage to take the money for themselves and not share with their friends who are in the same business of defending the opposite of the reality on the ground. That is shameful. This is embarrassing. This is the behavior our government have engaged in. They want people to join them in telling the Liberian people all is well, when all is not well as we know it. That was bad. And the guy exposed. And I know for some of you, that is funny. And then in the midst of it all, the president released a song called Liar Man. And that one would be your political dessert. The president released the song A Liar Man, Wicked Man, Bad Man. And I will do a special political analysis on that song. Or I'll find time. Maybe I can do it tomorrow. That's what happened, folks. The president, in the midst of all this, I know he has done this song and he has timed it that he will release the song after all the elections, hoping that the CDC will have performed better, apparently as he expected. But I will read something for you that I captured on Facebook, and it came from a big brother, and he couldn't have said it better. And that was his reaction to the president's son. And this came from Dave Jha. Dave Jha wrote, Mr. President, your music, Liar Man, is a typical example of what is referred to as passive aggressive behavior. You are the leader of the country. If you are not satisfied with some behaviors or action, you confront them through clearly defined actions to make things better. If there are folks in your government that are not performing up to standard, you have a direct conversation with them and take the relevant action to correct the situation. You do not go into studio to produce a song to lament. That is passive aggression. It does not solve problems. It is an avoidance behavior. It is a form of cowardice. Remember the man who could not confront his boss, then went home and beat up his poor wife or child? That is an example of passive aggressive behavior. You should be above that, sir. This is not how one governs. Very good reaction there from Dave Jha. Dave Jha, by the way, is a psychologist. So when you see him using terms like passive aggressive behavior, is in his field of study. He's saying, Mr. President, instead of releasing a song, calling all us liar man, wicked men. So whoever you know the wicked ones to be, the liars to be, if they are in your government, have a conversation with them. If you think it's the opposition, have a conversation with them. And let them tell you why they are saying what they say. And then you find a solution about it. And he described the president's behavior as an act of cowardice. That the president is a coward. That he would not make enough to face the reality that he sees, which is that people are lying to him. It's going as far as saying in his own country that people are trying to seek his downfall. I mean, who are those seeking your downfall, Mr. President? Confront them. So Dave Jha could not have described it better. The president behavior, he described it as passive aggressive behavior. That's passive aggression. You will not address the seriousness of the matter as you saw it, but you have to go into studio and produce a song. And now out of a sudden, you think you found your voice by seeking a son, liar man, evil man, wicked man. Saying that the things that they said that you, the president, did, you did not do those things. Why you can't confront them? And that was Dave Jha reaction to the president's son right there. And then I thought to read that because I think they have a very good point there. So, Mr. President, who are the liars in your government? Wherever they are, you should be able to confront them. You are the leader of the nation. Not the pulpit, not the pulpit. The bullet pulpit, and be able to address them on these issues as you see them, Mr. President. Don't go crying in one little corner like a little kid. You are the most powerful man in the country. Do something about what you see as wrong. But again, that's how the president chose to address the situation. And so we're going to make progress here quickly. Now let me make my recommendations. And in my recommendations here, after my recommendations, I will be reading a political poem for you. So the recommendation for the CDC, get your house in order. Many people have said it. By-elections have never been a favorable thing for any ruling government. People will go as far as referencing the story of Barack Obama's midterm election that he lost massively. He went back to work and came back strong and defeated Mitt Romney. So, folks, can the CDC do the same thing? Yes, that is what the CDC needs to do. And in the recommendation section, that is what the CDC needs to do. Take a deep breath, take a step back, reflect, What are the things that you did not do well? What are the things that you did wrong? What are the things that you said? What are the behaviors that you exhibited? Were you insensitive to the plight of the people? Were there corruption in your government? Did you do anything about it? Are there incompetent folks in your government? Can you do something about it? They need to do a serious soul searching. But the bad news that I got for you is that the CDC as a government, in my judgment, in my observation, does not have the ability to be able to go back into its political war room, sit down, look at their faults, be able to reconcile, take stock of those, come back, re-strategize, and make priorities that will be able to redeem them politically before 2023. No. Now, is it possible? Yes. It is possible. I say yes in the sense that it is something that is doable. It has been done before, not in the case of the CDC, but it has been done before around the world, in governments around the world, in administrations around the world. It's been done before. The example of Barack Obama is one of those. So yes, it is doable. But is it doable for the CDC? I'm saying no, it is not doable for the CDC. The CDC does not have it in them, the ability to come together and unite. The CDC does not have a leader. The CDC does not have a leader. Because in situations like that, you need a leader who sees it all. The reality that has set in, the leader who sees it all, who asks the right questions, who helps to take stock and be able to identify the problems, devise the solution, come up with an implementation plan, and go step by step, boldly to implement those plans. The CDC does not have that leader. CDC does not have those leaders in the forefront. Some of the leaders in the CDC that may have that ability to do so, those people have been ostracized, and the CDC will not entertain the opportunity of giving those people to have a voice. The government will not be able, the CDC government will not make a comeback. I guarantee you that. And you can take it to any bank of yours. For me, I don't have a bank. So you can take it to your bank. At least you trust your own bank and you will get your money worth. So folks, the CDC does not have it to be able to recalibrate. Everybody coupling for recalibrate, do an autopsy, and come back. Yeah, that is the right thing to do. It is doable, but it is not doable for the CDC because of those who are calling the shots in the CDC, those who make the decision, those who decide how the CDC should govern, how the party should run. Those people, they don't have it. Those that have it have been ostracized. And the CDC does not have the ability to reconcile, to bring the people in the fold. I know the history of the CDC. Did you not hear about the retreat? That retreat ended into a fanfare. CDCians who were ostracized from here in the diaspora, some of them when they had to come back. The very retreat from which they organized, raised money. I believe they took some of the money from government, they controlling the government anyway. They went to SAD and it became a fanfare. They didn't do it. That reconciliation took people like Vani Saki to Liberia. He had to come back and he did not see what they went there for. And so the CDC does not have it. Oh, so you think now, out of a sudden, these people also have given the CDC enormous opportunity to be able to see them, but the CDC has not. So the CDC does not have it. So that's it there. Let me come to the president. I think the CDC and the president have set it up. The president is the leader of the CDC, is the leader of the government. It is not in his nature. He wants to do it, but he does not know it. He does not know whether it's something that you can do, that you can look for people who will be helpful to you, people who will help you to produce and bring them to the fold. He will not do it. He will continue to jolly with the 12s and the Mangeo. And even if he mustered the courage, some way, somehow, to put these people aside, he will bring folks of the same and they will follow the same pattern. Because the president has a way of doing things and you have to be able to follow his way. You have to sycophantically align yourself with him. And minus that, it doesn't work. So it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen anytime soon. So what the next you need to do, my recommendation is that the next election, the 2023 election, they should start preparation on time. They should release their plan way ahead of time. They should talk to the government to secure the funding way ahead of time. They should be able to plan to be able to provide or release provisional results ahead of time and faster. The next should be able to find a way to calculate or to tally the vote faster. The next should make investment, if possible, into electronic devices where maybe they can scan the ballots. Because if they are producing the ballot boxes, the ballot paper, if they can negotiate with whoever is producing the ballot papers, all right, for them to be able to scan them, for it to automatically calculate, that is fine. They can do that. And, so that the numbers can automatically, generate, and so that the information can filter into a database and they can be able to verify the total being added to the database with the tally sheet that is being written manually. I think that will help them to go faster. The next should look in that direction. And I think it will do good for our country. And to the winners of the election, what happened to Thomas Fowler and other candidates like Besonga Fine, the CDC, and even some losers in other counties who are now part of the CDC, some independents as well. It can happen to you. To you, the winners, it can happen to you. In the case of Besonga Fine, he did a poor job as Minister of Foreign Affairs under his watch. Liberian passport became bastardized and criminalized. And he expected the people of Grand Bassa County to reward him with power for doing a very poor job with the Liberian passport. The people punish him. And so those who got elected, if they do the same thing, they will face similar fate in the very near future. And to the opposition CPP, what has happened to CDC can happen to you. The CDC is not united. You too, you are not as united as you should be. You're struggling along the way. You have to get it together. Because if you don't get it together, after a long time, you will not be able to get it together. It will be hard because the bruises will be severe that you will not be able to heal those bruises, and then it will be difficult for you. That is what happened to the CDC now. The CDC, the conflict in the CDC, the bruises have been ongoing even prior to their election. And then into election. So those things that were happening in the CDC manifested even when they got into government. And now those things are out of control and it's affecting them today. So the popular party that got elected 3 years ago, that was very popular 3 years ago, 3 years later, can now win Monserrado County that they have always been winning. They can win it. To understand that opposition candidate who go to win more votes than even President Weah. Dallas did not want more votes than President Weah. Dallas did not want with more votes than he won the last time. So there's an upward spiral in the performance of the CPP within Monserrado County, the CDC stronghold. It is so because they had a little collaboration going because they have no argument. There was no conflict with the selection of Darius DeLong as a candidate. No confusion. They all in agreement. They solidify with him. They should understand that now that I'm praising DeLong has conducted himself better than most of the candidates So they all satisfied with him some way, somehow. He's not a clean guy. He can never claim that. But at least he conducted himself better. And so they were satisfied with him. So those in the CPP, you have to conduct yourself better. And the CPP needs to be able to take cues from these things that happen. To the supporters of all the parties, be able to tell your leaders the truth. Tell them the truth. Stop this sycophancy. Stop the blind loyalty that you continue to exhibit on both sides. If you are in ANC, you will not muster the courage to tell Mr. Cummings or to tell your party leaders what they need to do for your party to be able to do well in elections. You justify, you give excuses. CDC have been doing that. People in the Unity Party are doing that. All the parties are doing that. So to the supporters, you must be able to look your leaders in the eye and be able to tell them how they can lead you better, how they should lead you better, how they can make things better, and not be able to come on the outside and just justify. It will not help you. To the Liberian voters, congratulations. I urge you to continue to vote in the faction. If any person who you elect does not do well by you, reject them at the poll. That is the best protest that any of us should entertain in our political life. That was excellent on your part. Congratulations for doing that. So those are my recommendations. Now let me read you the my political poem I told you about. Let me read you my political poem I told you about. Let me read you that political poem. I guarantee you will like it. I guarantee you will certainly like it. So, folks, I wrote this political poem. It is something I've decided to do to be part of the conversation. Something I decided to do to be part of the conversation. So let me read that to you quickly. And here it goes, folks. And I titled this political poem, and I'll put it on my page later on. I titled it Politicians and Politics. With big talks and empty words, chanting and spewing emptiness, preaching their version of change, blaspheming with words and phrases, they incite and excite their voters, tearing down others for glory. Oh, politicians and politics. Yesterday, agents of change, today, plunderers of state resources. Yesterday, speaking for the masses, today, stealing from the masses. Yesterday, advocating for the people, today, knowingly provoking the people. Oh, politicians and politics. Playing on the people's desperation, tapping into their worst fear, riding on the people's anger, capitalizing on the people's frustration, exploiting the people's vulnerability, appealing to the people's emotion. Oh, politicians and politics. They will get elected for themselves. They will procure, fattening themselves always, milking the system ferociously, making themselves gods and goddesses. For themselves, they care only. For the masses, they care noble. Oh, politicians and politics. Oh, poor masses, facing a monstrous reality, praying in vanity, and fending in no opportunity, hoping in uncertainty, wondering in calamity. They cannot fathom it all. Oh, politicians and politics. The campaign comes again. There they come in their homes, resuming the usual rhetorics, making promises with bold faces, the same promises they wouldn't keep. They will sweeten their tongue. They will prostrate with humility, telling fancy stories of accomplishment. Oh, politicians and politics. And finally, the people will throw to the pool. They will punish them harshly. They will teach them a lesson. They will get their revenge. They will cultivate a stink rebuke. They will bow in shame They will bow in crushing shame, and the cycle continues. Oh, politicians and politics. Folks in cyberspace, my name is Anthony C. I brought you this edition of the Hour of Politics. And again, I'm sorry for the quality of my voice. I'm on the core. Sorry because of time. We only going to read our poll here. We ask the question, who are the real winners in the just ended election? Who are the real winners in the just ended elections? And we have 38% say the opposition CPP, and then 63% say the Liberian people, and 0% say the independent bloc. I agree with you for your decision here. Certainly, the elections, we can say the real winners are the Liberian people and constituting 63%. For thank you for watching. Again, I can't apologize enough. I'm not feeling well, but I needed to do this. And so, folks, this is how we'll come to the end of this broadcast here. I focus on Liberia. My name is Anthony C. and I bring you now our closing song to end the broadcast. The song says, "We are all Liberians." Thank you and bye-bye.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.